Hey guys, Prowl1701 here, and today we're going to talk about the doctors that I think should come back for the 60th anniversary. The 60th anniversary is only about 2.5 years away in November of 2023, and more than likely, if tradition holds, it'll be a multi-doctor story. So I'm going to discuss the doctors I think that should return for it. Now, I think the one mistake the 50th made was that it focused too much on the modern series, didn't give us enough love for the classic series. So I think you need to have some classic doctors come back. First off, let me start and say, I think we need 6 doctors total. Because you need a fair amount, but you don't want to do too many. If you do, I think more than 6, you're going to have trouble balancing it out. You can't just do a lot of doctors. But at the same time, I don't want just all the modern doctors to come back. I wouldn't want to have 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, because I assume we'll be on the 14th Doctor by then. Excuse me, my sinuses are bothering me. But I wouldn't want to have just all these modern doctors. You need some classic doctors. So I think you need 3 modern doctors, 3 modern doctors, and 3 classic doctors for 6. Now, of the modern doctors, I think you need the current Doctor, the 14th Doctor, and then you need 2 of the previous modern doctors. That gets a little tricky. I think you kind of have to have Tennant, or else people are just going to be upset. Personally, I think you either need Tennant or Matt. I don't think you need both. They're they're not the same, but they have similarities. Personally, I'd rather have Matt. I think Tennant's looking a little older, which is fine. You can explain that away. I don't really think you should have Eccleston, again, just because I like Eccleston. I'd love to see more Eccleston, but I think you really got to limit how many doctors you have, especially since I think you need some classic Who doctors. But I'd rather have Matt, but I think it's better and makes more sense to have Tennant. And then I wouldn't want Jodie back, because Jodie's not the most popular with the fans. I know the BBC tries to tout how popular she is, but the viewing numbers say otherwise. The ratings have been dipping constantly. And while I don't hate Jodie, she is my least favorite doctor. And I don't think it'll make much sense to have her back. I'd rather have Capaldi back. That would be my other one, is Capaldi. I'd love to see how Ten and Capaldi get along, because I just have a feeling Capaldi would hate Ten. I just do. Just absolutely hate him. So I'd love to have, those would be my 3, the 14th Doctor, the 10th Doctor, and the 12th Doctor. Now, I do think you need some classic doctors, because I do think the 60th anniversary does need to celebrate 60 years of the show, not just 18 years of the show. And for the classic doctors, I think you need David Bradley back as the first Doctor, because I like David Bradley. I like the first Doctor. I don't necessarily like how the first Doctor was portrayed in Twice Upon a Time. He was okay, but I have a lot of issues with him. I'd really like him portrayed more like Hartnell portrayed him, or even Herndl. I actually like Richard Herndl's performance as the first Doctor in the 5 Doctors, because he has this very commanding presence. The first Doctor does. He has a very commanding presence, and the other doctors tend to look up to him and have a respect for him. You see in like the 3 Doctors and in the 5 Doctors. I want that to return, where the other doctors kind of have him in a certain type of awe. Except maybe 12. Now, people might be like, but shouldn't 1 and 12 recognize each other? Or shouldn't 12 recognize 1? Not necessarily. Keep in mind, well, 12 will probably recognize 1. He tends to recognize his previous selves. 1 won't recognize 12 yet, because he meets him in his future. Well, why didn't 1 recognize him in Twice Upon a Time? Because the doctors tend to forget when they meet themselves in multi-doctor stories. They don't tend to retain that memory. So it would still work, and I would like David Bradley as the first Doctor. Now, I also think, and this to me would be the crown jewel, this would be the thing that makes it for me. You need the 3rd Doctor, and you have to get Sean Pertwee. Sean looks so much like his dad, and I think that is a dream for so many of us classic Who fans, would be Sean to take over his dad's role and play the 3rd Doctor just once. Just once. I would love that. That is the thing I want more than anything from the 60th, I think, is Sean Pertwee to play the 3rd Doctor. I would love that. Just give him a nice wig, give him a nice 3rd Doctor outfit. I would love that. Of course, he's got to say reverse the polarity of the neutron flow at some point, and he has to do his Venetian Aikido. Hi! At some point, you have to have that in there. And then I'd also like to see Sylvester McCoy back as the 7th Doctor, because if there's anything that season 24 commercial showed for me, that trailer for the season 24, is that Sylvester McCoy still got it as the 7th Doctor. He just slipped right back into that so well. And while he looks older, he doesn't look super older. That could still be explained away by the time differential being different and making him look older, like they did in Time Crash. So I would love to see Sylvester back. So you'd have a Doctor from the 60s, a Doctor from the 70s, and a Doctor from the 80s. And you would have a nice spread out portion of Doctor Who there from the classic series. And then I also think you need a Tom Baker cameo. Tom's getting on up there. He'll be 89 by the time the 60th rolls around. I think you need him to cameo in there, much like he did kind of in Day of the Doctor. Because, Tom will be 89, and by the time the 70th rolled around, he'd be 99. And, it's just, sadly, there's a very fair chance he may have passed on by then. So this could be our last chance to get Tom really in the show again. I loved that he came back for Day of the Doctor, and it would make my day if he pops up in the 60th just to kind of help out, maybe offer some good advice. Maybe they're stumped on something and he shows up and kind of gives them the answer in his usual Tom Baker roundabout way. Maybe he just happens to show up on the planet they're on or space station they're on because and I do want it to be the curator version of him, not necessarily the 4th Doctor himself, but the curator, the future version of him that's curating the museum. And maybe he's just there to pick up a couple paintings for the museum and he just happens to run into them. Well, I just happen to be in the area, and since he just happened to be there, offers them some advice. That would be nice. It would just be really nice to see Tom Baker. He wouldn't have to be one of the main doctors in the story, but just to have him pop in for a scene, just to help out and have his presence, somehow make a difference, help the other doctors figure out what's going on, would be perfect. Of course, I'd like to see some returning villains as well. You got to have some classic Who villains in there. Daleks or Cybermen would be good. You could have the Master in there. I don't really know what I want from the villains. That's a different video. But those are the 6 Doctors I'd want. The 1st Doctor with David Bradley, the 3rd Doctor with Sean Pertwee, the 7th Doctor with Sylvester McCoy, the 10th Doctor with David Tennant, the 12th Doctor with Peter Capaldi, and the 14th Doctor with whatever's playing them currently. And if for some reason they can't get Tennant, I would like Smith. I would love to have Matt back as well. Because I really don't think you need to do more than 6 main Doctors. So that's what I want. What do you want from the 60th? If you could have, if you could plan out what was going to happen for the 60th, which Doctors would you bring back and why? Comment down below. Let me know what you think of my choices. Tell me what your choices would be and why you would pick them. Other things to do, click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications. I have started a Patreon page. If you're interested in contributing to that, there's a link to that down in the description below. Most importantly, though, stay safe out there. And thank you for watching.